Ladies and gentlemen, in life there are times when silence is more powerful than words. There are situations where speaking up will do more harm than good, where your voice might be a distraction from the purpose of the moment. If you learn when to be silent, you will preserve your peace, protect your vision, and make wiser decisions. Today I want to share with you 5 situations where silence is not just wise, it's essential. Anger is a powerful emotion, and when it arises, it can cloud your judgment and control your actions. In these moments, speak nothing. Words spoken in anger can damage relationships, hurt those around you, and often lead to regret. Silence is the space where you regain your composure, reflect on your feelings, and allow your mind to calm. Only then should you address the situation with clarity, not with the fiery words that were born in a moment of frustration. In the pursuit of success, we often feel the need to speak, to give answers, to show our knowledge. But silence in the face of ignorance is a sign of wisdom. When you don't know, don't pretend you do. When you remain silent in moments of uncertainty, you open the door to learning, to understanding, and to growth. The wise person understands that they cannot know everything, and they listen more than they speak. Never be afraid to admit that you don't know, for it is in the silence that the opportunity to grow is born. There will be times when life presents situations that don't make sense. It's easy to rush into conclusions or offer opinions when you are confused. But silence in moments of confusion brings clarity. When you are unsure, resist the urge to speak. Let the stillness guide you toward understanding. In this space of silence, you will begin to see things more clearly and make decisions with greater confidence. Don't let confusion rush you into words that only add to the noise. Every great leader understands the value of listening. Often, we miss the richness of other people's wisdom because we're too focused on what we want to say next. In these moments, silence is your ally. When others are speaking, especially those who are wise, listen carefully. You cannot learn if you're always talking. Allow others to share their perspectives, for in their words may lie the insight you need to move forward. Silence in this case is not only a sign of respect, but a practice in humility. Life has its fair share of critics and adversaries. When you are under attack, whether it be through gossip, lies, or unjust criticism, don't be quick to defend yourself. Often, the best response is silence. Fighting back with words will only escalate the situation and give power to those who wish to harm you. In silence, you show strength, you show restraint, and you show that the opinions of others do not define you. Silence in the face of attack allows you to maintain your dignity, protect your peace, and remain focused on your purpose. Anger is one of the most potent emotions that can take control of us in an instant. It rises from the depths of our being, and in many cases we find ourselves swept away by it before we even have a chance to recognize what's happening. In the heat of anger, our thoughts become clouded and our judgment is compromised. What might have started as a minor frustration can quickly spiral into an uncontrollable emotional outburst that not only damages our relationships but also sabotages our own peace of mind. In these moments, silence becomes our greatest ally. When anger takes hold, it is the silence that will allow us to regain control, to prevent harm, and to ensure that we do not let a fleeting emotion define our actions. It is easy to get caught up in the urge to speak, to defend ourselves, or to express our frustrations. The temptation to lash out is strong, especially when we feel wrong, misunderstood, or disrespected. However, if we act on that impulse, the consequences can be far-reaching and long-lasting. Words spoken in anger cannot be taken back. They can wound others deeply, and even if we later regret what we said, the damage is done. Silence gives us the opportunity to step back from the situation, to breathe, and to allow the emotional storm to pass. It allows us to create a space between the emotional impulse and the action that we might take as a result. In that space, we find clarity. In that space, we can choose how to respond rather than reacting out of anger. The idea of silence in the face of anger is not about suppressing our emotions or pretending that we are not angry. Rather, it is about choosing not to act on the impulse to let anger dictate our actions. It is about maintaining control over the one thing we can always control ourselves. When we are angry, our minds are often flooded with negative thoughts. We feel betrayed, hurt, or disrespected, and we want to release that emotional pressure. Our minds race with thoughts of revenge or justification, and we begin to believe that speaking out will somehow make us feel better or relieve the pain. However, the opposite is often true. When we speak in anger, we tend to regret it later because we often say things we do not mean. The anger that was once fleeting becomes a permanent stain on the relationship. Silence, however, allows us to pause, to reflect, and to allow the anger to fade naturally. In the silence, we can come to terms with our emotions, assess the situation more rationally, and decide how we truly want to address the issue. Sometimes when we are angry, it is easy to forget that anger is a temporary emotion. It does not define us and it does not have to control us. When we act on anger, we give it power over us and we allow a temporary moment to shape our future actions. By being silent, we give ourselves the chance to recognize that this emotion will pass. And in doing so, we prevent ourselves from making decisions or saying things that we will regret. Silence is not about denying or dismissing our feelings. It is about gaining the ability to separate ourselves from the emotion and to respond from a place of wisdom and understanding. Moreover, silence is an act of self-respect. When we remain silent in moments of anger, we show that we are in control of ourselves and that we do not allow external circumstances to dictate our reactions. This is not a sign of weakness, but rather of strength. It takes far more strength to hold your tongue and to process your feelings internally than to give in to the impulse to lash out. Silence in the face of anger is an expression of maturity, of emotional intelligence, and of personal growth. It demonstrates that we are not governed by our emotions, but rather that we can acknowledge them, understand them, and choose how we express them in a way that aligns with our values. In fact, silence can often have a greater impact than words. When we choose not to respond in anger, we send a clear message to those around us. We show that we will not engage in destructive behavior, and we set a standard for how we expect to be treated. Others will notice this, and it may even inspire them to act with more consideration and respect. In this way, silence becomes not just a tool for personal control, but also a model for how to handle difficult emotions with grace and wisdom. When we choose silence in moments of anger, we elevate the conversation and the interaction. Instead of contributing to the chaos, we create a moment of stillness, a chance for the situation to de-escalate, and the possibility for genuine understanding to emerge. There will, of course, be times when we must eventually speak. Silence is not meant to be a permanent withdrawal from the situation, but rather a temporary retreat that allows us to approach the issue with a clear and level head. When we are no longer governed by our anger, we are better equipped to express ourselves thoughtfully and with purpose. We can address the situation with the calmness and composure that it deserves. But the key here is that we speak when we are ready, not when the anger still controls us. By choosing silence first, we are giving ourselves the chance to approach the matter in a way that will foster resolution, not conflict. It is important to note that silence is not the same as passivity. Being silent does not mean that we are avoiding the issue or suppressing our feelings. It simply means that we are choosing to be intentional about how we express ourselves. It means that we understand the power of words and that we recognize that the best time to speak is when we are calm and rational. In this way, silence becomes an active choice, a conscious decision to control the moment rather than allowing the moment to control us. In the end, silence in the face of anger is a practice of self-mastery. It is a demonstration of emotional strength, maturity, and wisdom. It allows us to preserve our relationships, protect our peace, and maintain our dignity. Silence helps us to avoid unnecessary conflict, to prevent regrets, and to respond in a way that aligns with our higher self. The next time you find yourself in a moment of anger, remember that silence is your ally. It will give you the space to breathe, to reflect, and to regain control. And in that silence, you will find not only peace, but the power to choose a response that serves you, your relationships, and your future. There is a certain power in silence, one that is often underestimated in a world where knowledge and certainty are highly valued. We live in an era where everyone feels the need to have an answer for everything, where sharing our opinion is seen as a sign of competence, and where being silent in the face of uncertainty can sometimes be perceived as a weakness. Yet the greatest minds throughout history have understood that there is profound strength in acknowledging what we do not know and choosing silence in those moments. Silence when you don't know is not a sign of ignorance, but rather of wisdom. It is a sign of maturity and awareness that helps us navigate life's complexities with grace and understanding. We all encounter moments where we feel uncertain, where we don't have the answers we wish we did. It could be a challenging decision, a complex conversation, or a problem that seems beyond our current understanding. In these situations, the temptation to speak out or offer an answer is strong. We fear that admitting we don't know might diminish our authority, our value, our credibility. We may feel the urge to bluff our way through, to pretend that we have it all figured out, when in reality we are simply navigating the unknown just like everyone else. The problem with this approach is that it leads to mistakes, missteps, and a lack of growth. When we pretend to know something we do not, we not only deceive others, but also deceive ourselves. We close ourselves off from learning, from the opportunity to understand more deeply, and from the chance to ask questions that could lead to real answers. The moment we speak without knowing, we potentially lead ourselves down the wrong path. We may make decisions that are based on incomplete or incorrect information. And this can have long-lasting consequences. It's in these moments that silence becomes a powerful tool, a tool for learning, understanding, and ultimately wisdom. When we choose silence in the face of uncertainty, we open the door to deeper reflection. Silence creates the space to step back, observe, and process information without the pressure of feeling like we need to respond immediately. In silence, we allow ourselves to listen more intently, to absorb what is being said, and to ask the right questions. By withholding our responses, we create the opportunity to gather more facts, to hear different perspectives, and to truly understand the full scope of the situation. This is the essence of true learning, being able to observe without the need to speak, to listen without the urge to dominate the conversation, and to allow the process of discovery to unfold naturally. Furthermore, silence in the face of not knowing allows us to be open to new ideas, new solutions, and new ways of thinking. When we speak too quickly, when we feel the need to assert our knowledge, we close ourselves off to the possibility that someone else might have a better answer, a better approach, or a more insightful perspective. The world is full of experts, each bringing their own unique wisdom and experience to the table. If we are quick to speak, we may miss the opportunity to learn from them. But when we choose silence, we acknowledge that we do not have all the answers, and in doing so, we open ourselves up to receiving the knowledge and insights of others. There is also a deep sense of humility in choosing silence when we don't know. Humility is the recognition that we are not all-knowing and that our understanding is limited. It is the understanding that even though we may have vast experience or expertise in one area, there is always more to learn, always more to discover. Humility allows us to put aside our ego and recognize that asking questions and seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of strength. It takes courage to admit that we don't have the answers and to be willing to learn from others. Silence in this context is an expression of that humility, a willingness to listen, to learn, and to grow. When we speak in situations where we don't know, we may inadvertently create confusion or spread misinformation. We may overcomplicate the issue or muddy the waters with half-baked ideas that lack substance. On the other hand, when we remain silent, we give others the opportunity to contribute, to share their expertise, and to guide the conversation toward clarity. Silence encourages a thoughtful exchange of ideas, and it creates space for deeper exploration. By refraining from speaking when we don't know, we allow the collective wisdom of the group to surface and guide the process toward the most informed and effective solution. Moreover, silence in these moments is an acknowledgement of the value of patience. We live in a fast-paced world where answers are often expected instantly. We feel a sense of urgency to respond, to fix the problem, or to provide an answer as soon as we are asked. However, this rush to speak can cloud our judgment and lead to poor decisions. When we are silent, we allow ourselves the time we need to think, to process, and to reflect. Patience, as it turns out, is not only a virtue but a necessary quality for effective decision-making and problem-solving. Silence allows us to cultivate this patience, to resist the urge to act prematurely, and to approach the situation with a clear and rational mind. In addition to all of this, silence is a form of self-control. It is the ability to recognize when our words will not add value and when our silence will allow for a more productive outcome. It takes discipline to remain quiet when we don't know, particularly in a society that places such high value on quick responses and expert opinions. But true self-control is not about suppressing our thoughts or opinions. It's about knowing when our words are not needed and when silence will serve us better. It's about understanding that there is power in restraint, that there is strength in choosing to listen rather than speak. In many ways, silence when you don't know is an investment in your future self. By choosing to stay silent in those moments, you are allowing yourself to gather the necessary information, to learn from others, and to build a more informed perspective. You are not rushing to fill the silence with empty words, but instead you are filling that space with the potential for greater knowledge, understanding, and growth. Every time you resist the temptation to speak when you don't know, you strengthen your ability to process, to think critically, and to approach challenges with an open and clear mind. It's also important to recognize that silence when you don't know does not mean you will never speak. Silence is not an avoidance of engagement, but rather a momentary pause that allows you to choose your words carefully. Once you have taken the time to reflect, to listen, and to learn, you will be in a better position to contribute meaningfully to the conversation. The silence becomes the foundation upon which thoughtful and informed responses are built. In this way, silence is not a weakness, but a strategy, a powerful tool for personal and professional growth. Choosing silence in the face of uncertainty is not always easy. It requires us to step outside of our comfort zone, to resist the urge to fill the void with words, and to embrace the discomfort of not knowing. However, it is in this discomfort that we find the greatest opportunities for growth. It is in silence that we learn to listen, to observe, and to absorb the knowledge that surrounds us. It is through silence that we develop the patience, humility, and self-control necessary to navigate life's challenges with wisdom and grace. When we choose silence in the face of the unknown, we open ourselves to the possibility of transformation. We allow ourselves to grow, to learn, and to become more knowledgeable, capable, and confident. And in doing so, we discover that silence is not just an absence of sound, but a powerful tool for understanding, wisdom, and personal evolution. There are times in life when we find ourselves completely overwhelmed, when the noise of the world around us becomes deafening and the confusion in our own minds reaches a level of intensity we can hardly bear. In these moments, the best thing we can do is embrace silence. Silence, when confused, is not a passive state, nor is it a form of avoidance. It is a conscious choice to step back, to quiet the mind, and to create the space needed to regain clarity. Confusion often arises when we are faced with difficult decisions, conflicting thoughts, or overwhelming emotions. It may occur when we are uncertain about our direction in life, or when we encounter situations where the path forward is not immediately clear. The sense of confusion can make us feel lost, unsure of ourselves, and uncertain about how to proceed. It's in these moments that we may be tempted to speak, to act, or to make decisions quickly, hoping to dispel the confusion and bring a sense of control back to our lives. Yet, acting out of confusion is rarely helpful. In fact, it can often make the situation worse. When we are confused, it's easy to let the noise of our thoughts drown out the wisdom that resides in our inner stillness. The mind, in its confusion, tends to rush to conclusions, to search for quick fixes, and to gravitate toward the loudest voices that promise answers. But this frantic energy only exacerbates the confusion and keeps us from seeing the truth. When we silence the external distractions and the internal chatter, we create the opportunity for clarity to emerge. Silence, when confused, is the practice of stepping away from the noise, even if only for a moment, to allow ourselves the space to breathe and to think with intention. There is a unique power in the act of pausing. In a society that values speed, immediate answers, and constant action, the idea of taking a pause can seem counterproductive. We are conditioned to think that action is the antidote to confusion, but often it is in the pause, the stillness, that we find our bearings. When we choose silence in moments of confusion, we resist the impulse to act hastily. Instead, we give ourselves permission to slow down, to let go of the need for immediate answers, and to trust that with time, the path forward will reveal itself. Silence creates the mental space needed to sort through the chaos of confusion. In the absence of constant mental noise, we can begin to unravel the tangled thoughts and emotions that contribute to our confusion. Confusion often arises when too many factors are competing for our attention, pulling us in different directions. By embracing silence, we allow ourselves the time to sit with those competing thoughts, to examine them one by one, and to determine which ones are worthy of our focus. In silence, we can separate the noise from the signal, the distractions from the truths. It is through this process that clarity begins to emerge. This is not to say that confusion will disappear immediately when we choose silence. Silence does not erase the complexity of the situation, nor does it provide instant answers. What silence offers is a reprieve, a chance to breathe, to reflect, and to allow the fog of confusion to lift gradually. By taking the time to be still, we move away from the impulse to rush toward a solution, and instead we make room for the wisdom and insight that can only come when we are not forcing ourselves to act out of desperation. The silence that arises from confusion also allows us to become more attuned to our intuition. In moments of clarity, our intuition speaks to us in quiet, subtle ways. It whispers truths that may not be immediately apparent to our logical minds. But when we are caught up in the noise of confusion, it's difficult to hear those quiet whispers. Silence, on the other hand, creates the space for our intuition to rise to the surface, guiding us in the direction that feels most aligned with our true selves. When we are confused, it's easy to ignore this inner voice in favor of louder, more forceful opinions or answers. Yet when we embrace silence, we are more likely to hear the soft, guiding wisdom that comes from within. There is also a deep sense of humility that comes with choosing silence when confused. To be confused is to acknowledge that we do not have all the answers, that we are not in control of every situation, and that we are in many ways at the mercy of the unknown. Silence in the face of confusion is an expression of that humility. It is the recognition that despite our best efforts, we do not have the complete picture. Humility in confusion does not mean weakness. It is a strength that allows us to let go of our egos, to release our need to have all the answers, and to trust that the answers will come when we are ready to receive them. In addition, silence when confused helps us to avoid making decisions from a place of emotional turbulence. Confusion often brings with it a sense of inner chaos, a storm of conflicting emotions, thoughts, and desires. When we are overwhelmed by these emotions, it becomes difficult to see clearly, to think logically, or to make decisions that are in our best interests. Silence gives us the opportunity to detach from those emotions, to observe them without being swept away by them. It allows us to regain our emotional equilibrium and to make decisions with a clear and calm mind. In the absence of emotional noise, we can more easily discern what is truly important and what needs our attention. Moreover, silence in the midst of confusion allows us to better listen to others. When we are confused, it's easy to feel like we need to fix the situation quickly, to share our opinions, or to offer advice. However, in these moments, what we may need most is to listen, truly listen. Silence allows us to stop thinking about what we are going to say next and instead to focus on hearing what others have to offer. Others may have insights, experiences, or perspectives that can help us make sense of our confusion. By remaining silent, we create the space for others to share their wisdom, and we open ourselves up to the possibility of receiving guidance that can help us find our way. Silence also provides us with the opportunity to reflect on our own thoughts, behaviors, and patterns. Confusion is often a signal that something is out of alignment, that we are not in sync with our true selves, that we are being pulled in too many directions, or that we are not honoring our inner values. In silence, we can reflect on these underlying causes of confusion. We can ask ourselves the hard questions: why am I feeling this way? What am I avoiding? What do I truly want? These reflections may not offer immediate answers, but they help us better understand ourselves and the sources of our confusion. Over time, this self-awareness brings greater clarity. Another important aspect of silence when confused is its ability to foster patience. In our fast-paced world, we are often encouraged to act quickly, to make decisions without delay, and to fix problems as soon as they arise. However, some problems require time to understand fully, and some answers cannot be rushed. Silence teaches us the value of patience, the ability to wait for clarity to emerge, to allow the situation to unfold, and to trust that in time the confusion will dissipate. In a world where impatience is often seen as a virtue, silence invites us to slow down, to resist the urge to act prematurely, and to embrace the wisdom that comes from waiting. Lastly, silence when confused allows us to reconnect with our own inner peace. Confusion is often accompanied by a sense of inner unrest, a feeling that something is off, that we are not at peace with ourselves or the situation. Silence provides a sanctuary from this inner turmoil. It allows us to return to a place of calm and stillness within, where we can find clarity and regain our sense of balance. In these moments of silence, we rediscover our own center. And it is from this place of peace that we can move forward with greater confidence and understanding. Choosing silence when confused is not an easy task, but it is one of the most powerful tools we can use to navigate uncertainty. It is a conscious choice to step away from the noise, to quiet the mind, and to allow clarity to emerge naturally. Silence in moments of confusion opens the door to reflection, insight, and self-awareness. It gives us the space to listen, to learn, and to grow. It fosters patience, humility, and emotional balance. Ultimately, silence in the face of confusion is a pathway to understanding, one that allows us to find our way, even in the midst of uncertainty. There are moments in life when silence is not only necessary, but powerful. Silence when others are speaking is one of those moments that often goes unappreciated, but it is perhaps one of the most profound practices we can adopt in our interactions with others. In a world that is increasingly filled with noise, where everyone seems to be competing for attention, the act of remaining silent when others are speaking can have a transformative impact, not only on our relationships, but also on our own personal growth. We live in a time where conversations are constantly interrupted, where people are eager to make their point, and where the need to be heard often outweighs the need to truly listen. It is easy to get caught up in the desire to be understood, to make our voice heard, or to respond quickly to what is being said. However, in these moments, the most valuable thing we can do is simply remain silent and listen. The act of silence when others are speaking is not a passive one. It is a conscious decision to honor the other person's words and to allow them the space they need to express themselves fully. In many ways, silence in conversation is an act of respect. When we remain silent while others are speaking, we are signaling to them that their words matter, that their perspective is valuable, and that we are giving them our full attention. In a society where distractions are constantly vying for our focus, whether it's our phones, our thoughts, or the noise of the world around us, it is a rare and precious gift to be fully present with another person. By choosing silence in these moments, we create a space for meaningful connection, for true communication that goes beyond surface level interactions. Silence in conversation also gives us the opportunity to listen deeply. Listening is an art that requires focus, patience, and intention. When we speak, we often focus on the words we are saying, but when we listen, we must focus on the other person's words, their tone, their body language, and the emotions behind what they are saying. True listening requires silence, not just in the external world, but in our minds as well. Our minds often race ahead, anticipating what the other person will say or formulating our response before they have even finished speaking. This inner noise prevents us from truly hearing what is being said. When we remain silent and allow the other person to speak without interruption, we clear the space in our minds to fully absorb their words and to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Silence when others are speaking also fosters empathy. In order to truly understand another person, we must be willing to listen to their perspective without judgment or interruption. Everyone has their own story, their own struggles, and their own truth. When we remain silent and give others the chance to share, we open ourselves to their experience. We begin to see the world through their eyes, to feel what they are feeling, and to understand their point of view in a way that goes beyond mere words. This level of empathy is the foundation of all meaningful relationships, whether they are personal, professional, or social. It allows us to connect with others on a deeper level and to build trust, respect, and mutual understanding. Remaining silent also provides us with the opportunity to reflect on what is being said. Often when we are in conversation, we are so eager to respond that we fail to fully process the information being shared. We may hear the words, but we don't truly absorb the meaning behind them. By remaining silent, we give ourselves the space to digest what the other person is saying, to consider their words carefully, and to reflect on how we want to respond. Silence allows us to pause and think before we speak, which leads to more thoughtful, measured, and meaningful responses. Silence when others are speaking also demonstrates humility. It is an acknowledgement that we do not have all the answers, that we do not need to dominate the conversation, and that we are open to learning from others. In a world that often values extroversion, confidence, and quick thinking, choosing silence can be an act of strength. It shows that we are secure enough in ourselves to allow others to have the spotlight, to express their thoughts without feeling threatened or insecure. This humility in conversation is not about diminishing ourselves, but about recognizing that every person has something valuable to contribute, and that we do not need to speak in order to prove our worth. Moreover, silence when others are speaking helps us to avoid the pitfalls of misunderstandings and miscommunication. Too often, when we interrupt or speak over others, we risk misinterpreting their words or missing the nuance of their message. By staying silent, we give the other person the chance to express themselves fully without the distortion of our own assumptions, biases, or agenda. This allows us to better understand their perspective and to respond in a way that is aligned with their true meaning rather than our own interpretations. Silence also allows us to become more self-aware. When we choose not to speak, we are forced to observe not only the other person, but also ourselves. We become more aware of our own thoughts, feelings, and impulses. We may notice how often we are tempted to interrupt, to give our opinion, or to make our voice heard. In these moments of silence, we can reflect on why we feel the need to speak and whether it is coming from a genuine desire to contribute or from a place of ego or insecurity. This self-awareness is a powerful tool for personal growth, as it allows us to better understand our motivations and to make conscious choices about how we engage in conversation. Silence when others are speaking also creates the space for clarity. Often when we are in the midst of a conversation, it can be difficult to think clearly or to see the bigger picture. Our emotions, biases, and preconceived notions can cloud our judgment and prevent us from fully understanding the situation. By remaining silent, we create a mental space that allows clarity to emerge. We give ourselves the opportunity to step back from the immediate situation and to gain a broader perspective. This clarity is invaluable in both personal and professional relationships, as it allows us to make more informed decisions and to communicate more effectively. In addition, silence encourages others to speak more freely. When we are constantly interrupting or speaking over others, it can create a barrier to open communication. People may feel that their words are not valued or that their opinions are not welcome. By remaining silent, we create an environment in which others feel safe to express themselves without fear of judgment or interruption. This fosters a sense of trust and mutual respect, which is essential for building strong, healthy relationships. Silence in conversation also provides us with the opportunity to practice patience. In today's fast-paced world, we are often conditioned to value speed and efficiency over thoughtful consideration and reflection. We are expected to respond quickly, to make decisions on the spot, and to keep conversations moving at a rapid pace. But true communication is not about speed, it is about depth. By remaining silent, we practice the virtue of patience, allowing the conversation to unfold at its own pace and giving both ourselves and the other person the time we need to truly process and reflect on what is being said. Silence when others are speaking is also a form of emotional control. It is easy to get swept up in the emotions of a conversation, especially if the topic is sensitive or contentious. Our instinct may be to react impulsively, to defend our position, or to argue our point. But often these emotional reactions only escalate the situation and make it more difficult to reach a resolution. By remaining silent, we create space between our emotions and our actions, allowing ourselves to respond with more thoughtfulness and composure. Silence when others are speaking is an act of maturity. It requires emotional intelligence, patience, and the ability to listen deeply. It demonstrates that we are willing to prioritize understanding over speaking, connection over ego, and empathy over our own desires. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by information, opinions, and distractions, the ability to remain silent and truly listen is a rare and valuable skill. Ultimately, silence when others are speaking is an invitation to connect, to understand, and to grow. It allows us to build deeper, more meaningful relationships, to learn from others, and to cultivate the wisdom that comes from truly listening. In a world that often values noise over quiet, speaking over listening, and doing over being, the power of silence can transform our interactions and our lives. It is in the silence that we hear the truth, the depth, and the heart of others, and it is in this silence that we find our own strength and wisdom. In life, there are moments when we feel as though we are under attack, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally. These attacks can come from all directions, from the words of others, from circumstances beyond our control, or even from our own internal struggles. When faced with such attacks, it is common to react impulsively, to defend ourselves, to retaliate, or to counterattack. Yet, there is a powerful and often overlooked response in these situations: silence. When under attack, silence is not a sign of weakness, submission, or passivity. Rather, it is a profound and strategic decision that can have a transformative impact on our well-being, our relationships, and our ability to navigate difficult situations with grace and wisdom. Silence in the face of an attack is a conscious choice to maintain control over one's emotions and reactions. When we are attacked, it is natural to feel a surge of emotions: anger, fear, frustration, and even shame. These emotions can cloud our judgment and lead us to react in ways that may escalate the situation or cause harm to ourselves and others. In the heat of the moment, it is easy to say things we don't mean, to lash out, or to make decisions that we later regret. Silence provides the space to pause, to breathe, and to process the situation before we respond. It allows us to gain perspective and to make decisions that are aligned with our values rather than being driven by our emotional impulses. Silence also protects us from further harm. When we are under attack, the natural instinct is often to fight back, to defend ourselves, and to argue our case. However, engaging in a verbal or emotional battle can often make things worse. Words once spoken cannot be taken back, and the damage done in a moment of anger or frustration can be long-lasting. Silence acts as a shield, preventing us from saying things that we may later regret and from getting caught up in the cycle of attack and retaliation. By remaining silent, we create a boundary that keeps us from becoming further entangled in the conflict, giving us the opportunity to disengage from the negativity and protect our own peace of mind. In addition to protecting us from harm, silence also allows us to gather strength. When under attack, we may feel vulnerable, exposed, or weak. It is easy to believe that we must defend ourselves at all costs, to prove our worth, or to demonstrate that we are strong and capable. Yet true strength often lies in the ability to remain calm and composed in the face of adversity. Silence gives us the time and space to tap into that inner strength, to center ourselves, and to remind ourselves that we are not defined by the attacks of others. We are not weak for choosing silence. Rather, we are strong for resisting the temptation to react impulsively. In moments of attack, silence allows us to reclaim our power and to choose our response from a place of inner strength rather than from a place of fear or insecurity. Silence also provides clarity. When we are under attack, our emotions can easily cloud our judgment and distort our perception of the situation. We may become consumed by the need to defend ourselves, to justify our actions, or to prove that we are right. This can lead us to make decisions or say things that are not in our best interests. Silence allows us to step back from the situation and gain a clearer understanding of what is truly happening. It enables us to see the bigger picture, to recognize the motivations behind the attack, and to consider the best course of action. In the midst of chaos and confusion, silence offers the gift of clarity and insight, helping us to respond with wisdom rather than reacting out of emotion. In moments of attack, silence also creates an opportunity for reflection. Rather than immediately jumping into defense mode, silence invites us to examine the situation and ask ourselves why we are being attacked. Are the words of others rooted in truth, or are they simply a projection of their own insecurities and fears? Are we allowing ourselves to be manipulated or controlled by the opinions of others? By taking the time to reflect on these questions, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our role in the conflict. This self-awareness is essential for personal growth and for developing the emotional intelligence to navigate future challenges with greater ease. Silence can also be a powerful tool for disarming the attacker. When someone is attacking us, whether verbally, emotionally, or physically, they often expect a response. They may be looking for a reaction, for us to engage in their drama, or for us to defend ourselves. When we choose silence in the face of an attack, we take away their power to provoke us. Our silence communicates that we will not be dragged into their conflict, that we will not participate in their negativity, and that we refuse to be controlled by their words or actions. This lack of response can disarm the attacker, as it forces them to confront their own behavior and motives. By refusing to engage, we deny them the satisfaction of knowing that they have provoked us, and in doing so, we maintain control over the situation. Furthermore, silence allows us to maintain our dignity and integrity. When under attack, it can be tempting to defend ourselves, to argue our case, or to seek validation from others. However, engaging in these behaviors often undermines our sense of self-respect and dignity. When we feel the need to defend ourselves excessively or to explain ourselves to others, we risk compromising our own integrity. Silence, on the other hand, allows us to stand firm in our beliefs and values without having to justify them to anyone. It allows us to remain true to ourselves and to preserve our sense of dignity even in the face of criticism or attack. Silence also provides an opportunity for emotional healing. When we are under attack, the emotional toll can be significant. The hurt, anger, and frustration that arise from such experiences can linger long after the attack has passed. By choosing silence, we create the space to process our emotions in a healthy way. Rather than reacting impulsively, which can further fuel our emotional wounds, silence allows us to sit with our feelings, to acknowledge them, and to begin the process of healing. It provides a space for introspection and emotional regulation, allowing us to come to terms with our emotions before we take any action. Moreover, silence allows us to preserve our energy. Attacks, whether they are verbal, emotional, or physical, can be draining. Engaging in conflict or defending ourselves requires energy, both mentally and physically. By remaining silent, we conserve our energy for more productive endeavors, rather than wasting it on a battle that may not be worth fighting. Silence enables us to redirect our focus and energy toward more positive pursuits, allowing us to move forward with greater clarity and purpose. In some situations, silence can also be a form of compassion. When we are under attack, it is easy to become consumed by our own hurt or frustration and to focus solely on our own perspective. However, silence allows us to step outside of our own emotional turmoil and to consider the person who is attacking us. What are their motivations? What are they experiencing? Is their attack a reflection of their own pain, insecurity, or fear? By remaining silent, we give ourselves the opportunity to empathize with the other person and to recognize that their behavior may be coming from a place of hurt rather than malice. This shift in perspective can help us to respond with compassion rather than with anger or resentment. Silence, when under attack, is also an expression of emotional maturity. It takes emotional intelligence to resist the urge to react impulsively and to instead choose silence as a response. In moments of attack, emotional maturity is demonstrated by the ability to remain calm, composed, and centered rather than being swept away by emotions. It is a recognition that we do not need to engage in every battle, and that sometimes the best course of action is to withdraw and preserve our peace of mind. Emotional maturity allows us to respond to attacks with grace, wisdom, and integrity rather than with impulsive knee-jerk reactions. In the end, silence when under attack is not an act of surrender or submission. It is a deliberate and powerful choice that allows us to maintain control over our emotions, preserve our peace, and respond with wisdom and grace. Silence can disarm attackers, protect our dignity, and create the space for reflection, clarity, and emotional healing. It is a tool for emotional regulation, self-preservation, and growth, enabling us to navigate the challenges of life with strength and resilience. By embracing silence in the face of attack, we can emerge from difficult situations not only unscathed but stronger, wiser, and more centered.